entrepreneurs have to get comfortable with the notion that the ratio of no's and yeses is probably 80, 90% no's and 10, 15% yeses. Don't assume you know it all, but be comfortable with that notion. I know what I'm really good at. I know areas that I suck at. Each type of opportunity that didn't go forward, what are those learnings I can take out of that? And how do I get better when I think about the next opportunity?
This episode is brought to you by Malsoft Academy, South Africa's premier coding school with guaranteed internships and job placements. Today, we have a very special guest, Mr. Sanjay Soni from Josie Angels. Honestly, if you don't know Josie Angels, I don't know which tech startup you're operating in South Africa. It's like the biggest angel network in SA, and also one of my mentors from the Founder Institute. Thank you so much, Sanjay, for coming to the show.
Firstly, thank you very much for having me chat to yourself and chat to your audience. Always lovely to share my own experiences, and hopefully at least one other person's going to take something out of this next, 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah, incredible. It doesn't do you justice that this episode will be 1 hour. Honestly, this has to be a series of episodes. So could you just share your journey from university and how that was and how you became a CA?
So I became a CA by accident. And so I talk a lot about that now. So growing up, I grew up in a small town called Stenga, Kwadukuza. It's just 70 km north of Durban. And growing up, schooling was a lot about sport for me. And I was a very lazy student. Really a very lazy student. So I did enough to pass. And the two things I liked about school was basically maths and accounting. And accounting and maths came very naturally for me. So in matric, I ended up having the highest mark in accounting in the country when I did my matric way back when. And so logically, that's what you would need to go and study. Way back when, opportunities for bursaries were very limited for, people of color. My parents couldn't afford to send me to university. So the only option I had was to get a bursary or a part bursary and basically use that. So off I went, studied a BCom with the intention to become a CA. And I was a varsity bum in year one. Cafeteria bum. Sat in the cafeteria, did all sorts of things I should not have been doing.
Like what?
I've got to be careful how I say this. I used to play cards to make money so I could go out in the weekend. Okay. So that's what I used to do, because I guess as a varsity student, what do you want to do? Come Friday or Saturday, you want to be out with your mates, you're dating somebody, you want to take them out, and we didn't have money. And so you had to hustle. And so I hustled playing cards. And I barely passed year one. And somehow between years 2 and 3, it sort of dawned on me that maybe if you put in a bit of effort, you'll get somewhere. And that was, I guess, for me, the first thing that I'd learned about life and being in business. Not that I was in business at that point, is each one of us have our own set of God-given skills and talents and expertise. It's for us to use it. You can't force people to use their set of skills and expertise. They need to realize that. That was a very interesting learning for me way back, 1920 type of thing. So a 3-year degree took me 4 years. And then I studied full-time honors. And the one subject I hated was auditing. And I was studying to become an auditor. Didn't pass auditing in the final exam, wrote the supplementary, didn't pass, and didn't have enough money to continue studying. Then I sort of racked up a bit of student loans. And taking on student loan creates a different sense of ultimate responsibility in yourself, because ultimately you still got to pay that back to somebody. Happen to be a bank. And early on in life, you realize that when you borrow money, you have to pay it, but you got to find ways to make sure that you can pay it. And in my instance, it was, I need to qualify so I can start earning money and then basically pay back my loan. So after honors full-time first year, I started articles. and I studied part-time. Perhaps the best experience. It taught me a lot about discipline. And every week there was an assignment. The Thursday you had to finish your assignment, which meant you had to start on Sunday to finish on Wednesday to deliver on Thursday. And so you create a lot of rhythm around being structured, being organized, being accountable to yourself. Finished that. I had some study buddies. A few of us passed together, wrote the board exam in 1995. Way before you were a thought. Way before you were a thought. And at the time, I was probably less than 2,000 black CAs in the country when I passed the board exam. And really only 6 months after I passed the board exam, and it was my second year of articles, it dawned on me, you've actually got something, you need to utilize it to try and move on in life. It took me a good 6 months. The first 3 months was a big haze. You really pass that thing? Not quite sure. And 3, 4, 6 months later, it dawned on me that this had happened. And I guess that was the interesting point, but that really got me serious about my career, what I wanted to do in life, and also appreciate that I have something to offer. I need to utilize it better. So finished articles, moved on to another professional services firm, and that's where my career took a very different tangent. Talk a bit more about that?
I want to ask something.
Sure.
You mentioned something on discipline and how that was the key factor that made you go from, I'm just here in university like everyone else, to, okay, I need to get serious with my career. How important is discipline in an entrepreneur, anyone's life?
One of the key traits of being an entrepreneur is having self-discipline. And fortunately, I started to learn that very early on in my career, because if you are not disciplined with yourself, don't expect somebody else to try and discipline you, right? Once you get beyond schooling, when you get into varsity, and you get beyond that, there's no teacher to discipline you. Your parents see you as an adult. They discipline you, but not in the manner they disciplined you when you were 5 years old. So who does that for you? You've got to do it yourself. You got to create your own discipline. But what discipline does for you is it does two things. It gives you a sense of purpose. It holds you accountable to doing something, whatever that something may be.
I always say, for me, one of the biggest regrets in my life is not going to the military, because I feel like if I had gone and become a soldier, I would have learned the importance of listening to orders and being disciplined.
So one of the things that I learned a lot when I did my 3 years of audit articles was system, structure, process, organization, being disciplined. So the audit profession, and it's still somewhat the same now, many, many years later, you work on deadlines. Now, if you know I started audit on day 1 and the deadline's 30 days later, you can't rock up on day 26 and expect to get it done, right? Which means that you got to plan about these things. What do I need to do on day 1? What do I need to do in week 1? What do I need to do in week 2? I'm working in a team. How do I engage with the rest of my team members? So those softer skills, I was able to learn a lot of that through the audit process. But learning it and applying it then becomes two different things. Fortunately, I learned to apply a lot of that, those softer skills to allow me to progress in my own life and my own career.
Okay, interesting. And how then did you transition from an accounting career to the tech industry?
Okay, couple of stops in between, so I'll spend a few minutes on that. When I joined one of the larger professional services firms, I was fortunate in that I got an opportunity to be part of their corporate finance team. And I knew very little about it. What you learn in university and what's in practice, poles apart. And so when the opportunities came up in Durban to say, who wants to get into corporate finance? I said, that's me. The guy asked me, what do you know? I said, actually know nothing. You're going to teach me. Okay. And what that corporate finance thing did for me was expose me to other things outside of the auditing profession. Buying businesses, selling businesses, how to do evaluation, how to raise capital, how to do all of that. And that experience, and when I subsequently left professional services, that background and that experience and that knowledge, and having done a lot of the stuff over 5-6 years, set me up for the next 15-20 years of my career. With the corporate finance background, I said, I enjoy this deal making stuff. I enjoy this helping people buy and sell businesses, start up businesses. Let me start my own. The first two businesses I started whilst I was still in professional services. I'd invested in a travel agency. We invested in a second travel agency. As an investor initially, not active. I'm going to fast forward very quickly. I've been involved personally in 14 startups.
Okay, 14 that you started.
That I've either founded or co-founded over the last 20 plus years. And so you learn a lot of stuff in that process.
Yeah.
So the first 2 or 3 that I started up were a non-tech lens. Tech's only become really prominent in the last 5, 10, 12 years. I'm talking 2007, 2008 when we were starting out these businesses. And for me, it was about the basics of business, how to start a business, what do you need, how to grow a sustainable business. And when I left professional services, I joined the business that I invested in. They asked me to take on the role as CEO. And my job was twofold. Grow a team, grow the business. We grew astronomically. So when I first started, we were about 12 staff permanent. And I left 2.5 years later, 65 staff for officers. And that learnings helped me think about life very differently. I was utilizing my skills, trading for myself. And at that point was another life lesson that I learned. As an entrepreneur, there's no back door. Let me explain what that means.
Please.
Often in life, whether you are in school, whether you're living at home, whether you've got a partner, whether you have a job, there's always somebody else that you can say, I've done my piece, now you take it over, and it's now your responsibility. As an entrepreneur, that doesn't exist. But the key around that is for entrepreneurs to realize that they are the back door. When there's a problem, you've got to solve it. Doesn't mean you have the solution. You got to find a way to find the solution. And so when I joined this travel business, I realized I am my own back door. So I need to lean on other people. I need to go and do my own research. I need to talk to lots of other people, talk to suppliers, clients, talk to fellow entrepreneurs. And so this notion of there is no back door as an entrepreneur, get comfortable with that notion. What it does psychologically, it sets you up to say, when there's a challenge, so in my life, there's no problems, there's challenges, which means that it's capable of being solved. I just got to think about how to solve it.
How would you, sorry, Sanjay.
No, carry on.
How would you advise an entrepreneur like myself, right? Because I completely understand what you're saying when you're saying as an entrepreneur, there's no back door. If there's a problem, you need to fix it. How would you advise someone who maybe they're going through a rough patch and the problems are just a lot and there's a lot of problems and they're thinking of, I'm going to throw in the towel?
One of the other lessons I've learned in life is that unless you're backing yourself, nobody's backing you, right? And so I'm stating a lot of obvious things, but people don't think about it as being obvious things, right? You don't back yourself, who's going to back you? Nobody's going to back you.
Yeah.
Whether it's starting a business, raising money, getting a job, if you don't believe in yourself that you're the right person for that particular role or for that particular job or for that particular business, don't expect somebody else to back you. Even if it's your life partner, even if it's your parents. Your parents back you because they're your parents. Sometimes they are jaded, and I'm saying this with a lot of respect. Parents have a different lens on their kids, whereas friends and other family and I guess those types of people. So you spoke about, okay, there are challenges and you want to throw in the towel. Always have options. Are you thinking about those options? I can just list 3 off the top. You know fellow entrepreneurs who may have been here before, been there, done that. Go talk to them. That's number 1. Number 2, remind yourself, you started this thing because you had the spark, you've got some experience, you believe in this thing. Keep reminding yourself. And thirdly, communicate and get some knowledge. Talk to people, gather information. The internet is abundantly blessed with knowledge. There's plenty of stuff out there. You've got to do that work for yourself before you start leaning on other people. So there's lots of things that entrepreneurs can do when they are going through difficult patches. One of the things I've consistently done is engage with other entrepreneurs and also become part of business forums where there are people similar to myself running their own businesses where I can lean on them when I'm having a bad time.
Yeah, that's good advice. That's really great advice, because the journey of an entrepreneur is extremely difficult. And I think people that try to walk the journey on their own and think, oh, because I'm such a great engineer, I've never met anyone like me, no one can do it better than me, I'll do everything by myself, they end up suffering the most, because you can't really do it on your own, can you?
One of the challenges entrepreneurs, whether you're an experienced or less experienced entrepreneur, don't assume you know it all, but be comfortable with that notion. I know what I'm really good at. I know areas that I suck at. So in as much, and you asked me a question earlier about tech, and we're going to get to that shortly. In as much as I'm in this tech space, my knowledge of tech generally is below average. But that doesn't mean I can't be in the tech space. I bring other skills, attributes, experiences that tech entrepreneurs need in their business. I'll use a very practical example. Assume it's yourself and you are really great at app building and app development. You're a techie, as they would call. There's a whole bunch of other skills required to run a business.
Yep.
Do you know how to manage your finances? Do you know how to go and get customers? Do you know how to put a marketing plan in place? Do you know how to think about strategy? And those are some of the things that I can lend into that conversation.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's incredible. That's incredible. Thank you for that. Okay, and then quick question on the 14 startups that you started. I'm sure there's a lot more that you started, or domain names that you bought and stuff that you tried out. And out of these 14, I'm pretty sure there's many of them that were failures, right? How do you deal with failure?
So, every time something doesn't work, you've got to convince yourself you need to reflect, right? Don't say, well, it didn't work. This was the issue. That was the issue. I'm not at fault. I have this thing, and I've had it for many, many years. I look at myself first. What have I not done that I could have done? Whatever that may be. Did I do my research appropriately? Did I engage with the right partners? Was I blinded by what I saw as a market opportunity, whereas I should have tested whether there is really a market opportunity? Introspection is very important, right? So to answer your part of your question, probably 8 or 9 of them have failed. And I'm comfortable with that, because in each failure, it's not a failure for me. I'm still learning in that process. So with each type of opportunity that didn't go forward, what are those learnings I can take out of that? And how do I get better when I think about the next opportunity? So this introspection piece becomes very, very critical. Sometimes there are factors outside of your control. You've got a great idea, the market's not ready for it. Okay? So what do you do then? To some extent, you may have to just shelve that idea till the market is ready, or go and create a new market for what idea you already have. And so for me, it's all about options. And I guess I'm sort of wired up to say, if this, then that, what else then? So like, it's always about, I'm thinking in my mind, decision trees. This happens, what happens next? That doesn't happen. So one of the things you'll hear a lot from entrepreneurs that have done well, they're always thinking 5 steps ahead. But there's a reason they think 5 steps ahead. Don't assume the next step you're making is going to be the right step. If that doesn't work, what do you do next? And don't take that step and say, okay, now what do I do? Got to be thinking about these things all the time.
Yeah, there's a book that I love by Patrick Bet-David, Your Next 5 Moves. When I read that book, for me, it gave me the perspective of business is not something that's short term, that you just jump in today and then in 2-3 years you hope to become a millionaire. When I started thinking in terms of decades, I got a lot more patient, and also I started being more successful because I was not demanding the success to come now.
Yeah, so this impatience that generally exists with entrepreneurs, there is a notion called delayed gratification, which is you put the work, you'll get the result eventually. You got to put the right type of work. And don't assume, okay, one day of the week I've worked 24 hours, I can take the rest of the week off. Doesn't work like that. Life doesn't work like that. Yeah.
Are you a believer in working hard or working smart?
For me, it's a combination. The working hard sometimes means that you got to put in long hours, right? The working smart part is two lenses for me. Number one, do you have similar experience in the past? How can you learn from that experience to become a bit more effective, right? So if you're doing the same task routinely, I'm just using that as a very simple example. In day 5, you will work out, how do I do that same task but become faster or more efficient, right? So you've got to lean on your past experiences coupled with experiences of other people. So that's the one piece. And then the second piece, there's a tech overlay on this, which is tech today allows us to be more efficient to the extent we know what we want to be more efficient at. I'm going to use a really silly example. So in one of my businesses, I've got a team of people. We advise clients around strategy. And when I ask my team to do something, initially, the first thing they'll do is go and open up PowerPoint. PowerPoint's not going to give you the answer. It's just going to make the presentation look better. And with the overall evolution of tech, things like AI, it may help you think about how to get to those things. But you need to tell PowerPoint what you want it to do for you. So tech for me is an extremely good enabler. It's not the answer. So this efficiency thing is about using these experiences and using tech to your advantage.
Yeah. So there's that principle, garbage in, garbage out again. If you don't feed the AI and whatever great tools you have with great data sets, then it's all futile. The technology won't solve the stuff for you.
And in truth, you actually don't want the technology to solve to that extent. Human interface is still required.
Yeah. And in your out of all your 14 businesses, which one would you say was the most successful?
Got to say the travel business, for me, it was the most successful because that's where I learned the most. Starting with us putting in our own cash to raising money to go and put in guarantees with the travel industry, to building up relationships, to building up a client base, to building up a team. Going from 12 staff to 65 staff in 2.5 years, it's not an easy thing. With that comes cash flow challenges. With that comes growing pains. In business, they say that the hardest staffing point is between 25 and 45. You sort of in no person's, I'm not calling it no man's land, I'm trying not to be sexist, no person's land, because it's the most uncomfortable position, and we work through that. So for me, the travel business, which was non-tech related, one of my business I'm involved in is a strategy consultancy business. I joined that business 2 years after my partner started that. And we hold a unique place in the marketplace. We're not a conglomerate. We're not a massive business. We have 5-6 staff working for us, but we're extremely successful because we service really great clients and we deliver top-notch value service.
So for you, what does a successful business look like? Is it revenue, or is it waking up every day excited to work on it? How do you measure success?
When you see your business as not being a job, that's where success is. You must love what you want to do, and you must love what you are doing, right? Because it's to the second point. When you get up in the morning, are you telling yourself, "Oh, I've got to go to work," or is it, "Today I'm going to service 3 clients and I'm problem solving for them"?
Yeah.
Right? There are financial things that one has to be aware of when you're in business. Got to make money. You got to hopefully grow the top line. You got to be able to draw a good salary. You got to make profits. You got to be able to put yourself in a position where hopefully you can sell off a portion or the entire business. And so those are delayed success factors. The routine success factors is, do you really love what you're doing? Are you passionate about it? Sometimes the money doesn't translate at the same time. Like for me personally, I'm really passionate about working with entrepreneurs and startups. At the moment, it's not significantly revenue generating for me, but I know it's going to come because I'm putting in all the right work now to establish brand awareness around myself and my team. And one or two businesses, I've got partners where as a collective, people recognize us for that. Once you get that recognition, more people start to talk to you. Then you get more clients and you start servicing more people. And that's when your top line grows and that's where your profitability goes. And again, we spoke a bit about this earlier on. Delayed gratification. Got to constantly be doing the work. And it's constant, right? It's not like 3 weeks, okay, let me take 3 weeks off. 2 weeks, okay, I'm having a bad headache on a Monday.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I remember this one time when my agency, my software company was 2 years in and it was struggling. It was bad. No money, no clients. For me, the only thing that kept me going was the fact that I thoroughly enjoyed that going out there, looking for clients, that hustling, knowing that I'm building my own thing. And yes, I can tell that right now I'm in a bad space, but one day I'm going to come out of this. And yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying there.
Yeah, when you engage with, and I'm calling it successful in inverted commas, not financially or otherwise driven. Each one basically defines their own success. But when you talk to successful entrepreneurs, one of the things, they'll tell you many things, but one of the things they will tell you is that I enjoy what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And if the enjoyment factor is not there, you got to ask yourself, is this a business for me?
I was watching this video this morning from Vusi Tembekwayo, and you were saying that you as the entrepreneur, okay, you are saying there's a difference between a CEO and a founder.
Yeah.
A founder, you can start the business and you love it and you want to work maybe in, let's say you're a great software developer, you just want to build the product. But then if you're the CEO, you have to manage the whole business. So do you think that more founders should hire CEOs?
Founders make the worst CEOs.
Okay.
So I'm quite categoric about that.
Yeah.
For a different reason. A lot of founders and entrepreneurs have qualities and traits and willing to take risks that most people don't do. And so what are those 2 or 3 things? The first thing is that they think about things that other people don't think about. So they have this ability to like look around the corner to see the opportunity. Second thing is generally founders are hustlers in a good way. They'll make a plan, they'll hustle, they'll bootstrap, they'll do all of that, right? A CEO differently is I have a business mandate to run the business in a manner where I'm returning money to shareholders. And why founders generally don't make good CEOs? There are tipping points in any business evolution where you need different skill set and experiences. And there's no timeline around it. It could be on day 1, it could be in year 5, it could be in year 20, where the founder is not appropriate to take that business forward. Where the challenge lies is not so much about that. It's the founder appreciating that their role in the business has changed and needs to change. Up until that point, they're pulling the strings. You do this, see this customer, do that, blah, blah, blah. Once you get to a particular point, you're not the right person. And so generally, tech founders are really great at thinking about tech. They're abreast of what's happening. They know how to put solutions together. They know how to build code. They know how to do all of that type of stuff. They don't necessarily know how to run a business. Not that they are not, they don't have the experience in running a business. And it's about having that mental awareness that I'm at this point, I'm not the right person for me to take this business forward. And so you find when entrepreneurs and founders start to partially exit, one of the things that new investors start talking about is who's the CEO in the business, right? It's not because they don't like you. You are not the appropriate person at that point in time.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a hard thing for entrepreneurs to accept.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've been there. I've done that. Very hard for me to accept that. But history will tell you that there are tipping points where you are not the right person for this. And so just get comfortable with that notion.
Yeah. Well said. So let's say I'm a student. I'm 18, 22, 23 years old, and I have an app idea. Maybe I have a little bit of coding skills, but not enough to actually build the product. I don't have any funding. Where do I start?
Sure. So first thing I would do is I would get on the internet and research. Who else is doing something similar that I intend to build? Get a sense of the landscape locally, continentally, and globally. The reason I say that upfront is if somebody's done it and they're sitting in Silicon Valley, I'm using a bad example, they're sitting in Silicon Valley, they've proven that the market needs something that they've built. So you can learn from that experience. You can download that app and say, what do I like? What do I not like? What things do I not want to take into this market because the market doesn't really need it at this point in time? And how do I get a different version of that? To do lots of research. Secondly, and again, I'm a non-tech person, but for me, this part is actually simple. There's a lot of free tools on the internet that you can utilize, right? And again, that's part of the research. Thirdly, go and talk to people that are in these spaces, not in the space that you want to be in, but in app development, building code, doing all of that, and learn from them. People will be very surprised when they ask people how much people are willing to share. I often say this: you don't ask the question, the answer is always no.
Yeah,
you need to ask questions. You're going to get a lot of no's. People sometimes don't want to share with you, or they think that you're going to cannibalize their idea or whatever it is. But there are lots of people that will share with you. The other thing that you could do is to say, are there programs that allow me to go and test my idea in a controlled environment where somebody else will back me to some extent? So, and not that I have favor for one over the other. Microsoft have a program, AWS have a program. A lot of tech businesses have programs where they make available certain of their resources to entrepreneurs to build out to a particular point. Talk to people who are in those programs. Go and apply yourself to that program. Keep applying. Go and meet people that are part of that program to see how can you get onto that program. So the answer is not, well, I've got this great idea, I don't have money. Like, how are you hustling? And what's the trait that you build up in life? You start hustling, and that hustle then takes you out of your comfort zone. As human beings, there are a couple of things we don't like. One of the things we hate the most is when people tell us no or they reject us. Entrepreneurs have to get comfortable with the notion that the ratio of no's and yeses is probably 80-90% no's and 10-15% yeses.
Yep.
But you need to understand that. So for me, and so this is a lesson I learned at the travel agency. There was a point where the business was stable and my partners came to me and said, we need to grow the business. So I said, no problem. We jointly dropped a list of 17 clients that I was tasked to go and meet with them. About half of them we had some relationship, the other half we had limited relationships. I never took no for an answer. Whatever issue the prospective client threw at me, you guys are too small. That was an excuse. I just kept on working out what is the real issue at hand. 4 months later, we converted 13 of those 17 clients. I got lucky.
13 out of 17. That's not lucky.
No, I got lucky. But I got lucky because I continued persevering. No matter what negative issue they threw at me. Okay, no problem. I'll speak to my team. I'll come back to you. Is there anything else? And so I had this attitude or drive to say, whatever you throw at me, I'm going to find a solve around that thing, whatever it may be. Clients will say, we'll pay you 60 days later. I can't wait 60 days, but I explained to them why I couldn't wait 60 days. Number one, I'm a small business. Number two, cash flow is important. Number three, I've got to pay the suppliers over there. And so wherever the 60-day thing came on, they ended up paying us 15 days or 30 days. So it was more right, I'm not taking this no for an answer. And yes, 4 people told us no, which is cool. But 13 people told us yes. And yes, you get lucky. Gary Player says this often. The more you practice, the luckier you get.
Yeah.
right? He said this millions of times.
Yeah.
And so entrepreneurship is about that. Got to keep at it. Got to keep at it.
Numbers. It's a numbers game. Just never quit, never settle. So let's say now the product is built. It's up now. Okay, we've managed to gather some people. They built an MVP. We have something.
Yeah.
What is the best way to take an idea to the market at a low budget?
Yeah. So one of the interesting things that entrepreneurs need to realize that whatever idea you have, you are the only customer at that point in time. That sounds strange, right? I've checked the market. I know this need. You know this need. The market doesn't know whether they want that, right? So part of that is accepting that even though you've built this MVP and it's functional and it's working, I need to get people to use it. Best guinea pigs, friends and families. They're unlikely to tell you no to use it. But what's the hard part? Engage with them to get robust, honest feedback. That's the part. If you go to your dad and say, I've built this thing and whatever it is, he's more likely to be very kind with you, right? So have a bit of a spectrum. And that's why they call it family and friends. Family will be a bit softer. Go to your best friends. Go to people that were in school with you. Go to people that you studied with and say, got this cool idea. I've built something. Can you test it for me? Not everybody's going to say, I'll test it for you. And not everybody's going to give you honest feedback. One of the things I've learned, and so now I've sort of pivoted myself to say, I don't necessarily want to start up more businesses. I rather want to advise and invest in entrepreneurs based on their ideas and what traction they've got and whatever it is. So a key thing around this thing around getting to MVP and beyond is testing that idea in the marketplace and confirming or otherwise your assumptions about the solution that you want to take to market. And the most important thing, being receptive to accepting that what you've got as an MVP, the market may not need that. They may need a version or an iteration of that.
Yeah, there's a common saying in Silicon Valley that if you're not embarrassed by your MVP, then you probably launched it too late. You're not embarrassed by it.
Correct. And again, but it's about accepting that the idea that you have is your idea, untested in the market. In very low budget, family and friends. And then those people that are, call them promoters, lean on them to say, who in your network that I don't know can we go and talk to about this? Very important thing that people forget about when you are an entrepreneur. You have a contact base that you need to utilize. Most entrepreneurs have smartphones. They have anything from 100 to thousands of contacts. You can spend some time and say, I'm looking to build something in this space. Who is the person at that corporate that could utilize my solution? If I don't know them, who in my network can help me get to them? Back to the earlier point, you got to ask the question. And so when people talk about entrepreneurship is hard work, all of this I'm describing is very hard work, right? That's where the tools come in. How do you get a bit more efficient, right? That's where the networks and access come in. How do you lean on other people to help you move forward? Starting point, family and friends. And then you systematically spoke a lot about the delayed gratification. Impatience. You want to build a big business, it's going to take you time. Talk to any successful entrepreneur that's exited their business. It didn't happen in 6 months. It didn't happen in 1 year. It happens over a period of time.
Yeah. Interesting. So let's say now the idea's out, the friends and families and the other people, they love it.
Yes.
And maybe even making your first sales, your first customers. And now to take it to the next level, you need to raise capital. How can an entrepreneur approach fundraising?
So the first thing is, and this is where you need to engage with advisors, mentors, and the like. Confine people in your network, confine people that are running programs and try and get on these programs where you can get access to people that have more experience in fundraising than you have. The web gives us a lot of stuff. personal interaction is going to give you more stuff. A lot of what I do is help founders and entrepreneurs think about fundraising, right? And so for me, the approach is sort of like there's three broad things you need to think about. Can you sell me your story in 30 seconds? You can't sell me your story in 30 seconds. You're not going to sell it to anybody else. But part of that process is entrepreneurs understanding the funding journey. It's not a one meeting, I get the money journey. Entrepreneurs need to understand that fundraising is about building relationships, building trust, and getting people to believe in you. I use the dating example often enough. So assuming you meet somebody, whether it's a guy or a lady, and you like them, and you want to date them. It's a process, right? You go on the first date, you have coffee, start talking a bit. Sort of like each other. Okay, let's go on a second date. That may end up in being dinner. Then there's a third date. But what's the notion of the dating? We're getting to know each other better. It's about establishing trust. It's about building a relationship. Fundraising is no different. Are you likely to marry your life partner on the first date?
No.
Near impossible. I'm not saying it, by the way, it probably does happen, but that's in the minority, right? Less than 0.1%. There's a process. When you're thinking about fundraising, once you've got beyond MVP, think about it as business dating. But there are foundations again. Build trust, establish relationships. It's a journey. So for me, I see this thing in three pieces, and everything is about building a relationship. Can you sell your idea in 30 seconds? And the idea of the notion of selling your idea in 30 seconds is, can I get to the next meeting where I share more information? Can I get to the next meeting where I share even more information? And so that's where a lot of entrepreneurs tend to get it wrong. I need $1 million. You actually don't need $1 million. You need to sell your idea to somebody that believes you are the right person in that business, even before they think about giving you $1, leave alone $1 million. And so that's the process. So raising funding in this or any other market, again, that's a time process. It's not time as in it takes a month, 6 months, 5 years, but there's a journey that you got to walk on. But it's about the softer stuff that entrepreneurs ignore. A lot of people enter pitch competitions. They go on to incubate and accelerator programs. What are you hoping to achieve? What are you hoping to learn? By all means, you must go on all of that. And I support a lot of these programs. But what is your objective as your entrepreneur to get onto that program? Am I there to learn, to meet people, to impress the funder, to enhance my own knowledge? Fundraising, a lot of people don't have experience in it. Entrepreneurs must accept that they don't have the experience. And so that's the next part of it. Find a mentor, advisor, coach that's going to help you through this process. You've been through the Founders Institute program by way of example. When you walked in, you thought you knew everything.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What are you guys going to tell me that I don't know? That's a lot of attitude of all entrepreneurs. Okay. Let us show you. And when you walked out, you humbled yourself by saying, I thought I knew a lot. I actually knew very little. Now I know a lot more.
Yeah.
And you still don't know enough.
We walked in with this attitude of we already have an MVP. We already have paying students. Our idea works. We're just looking to raise, and I think we were looking to raise an incredible, crazy amount. I think we would say $500,000 so that we can take our idea to America. That was our idea. And we thought we were amazing. But then when we went through the program, we actually realized we don't need funding. We can literally just start this business and get customers and make great money. So, yeah.
And so this funding journey is about that realization that you may have a good tech idea and you may have a good product. Raising money is a very different process.
Yeah. And so as someone who started an incubator and an accelerator to serve the townships, what would you say are the biggest problems that township entrepreneurs are facing?
Yeah, so probably 2 or 3 things. I think the first thing is access to technology. So we take for granted that we have a smartphone, we've got access to Wi-Fi and or fiber and or data.
Yeah.
We take that for granted, right? The township environment's not like that. Fiber rollout in the country is expanding, but not all township environments have fiber to the home. It's gotten a lot better. So access to basic technology to allow them to utilize smartphone features is a key challenge. Linked to that is literacy around technology. Can I use WhatsApp for business? And can I now use my WhatsApp to actually pay somebody? Which technology exists? People that are in more affluent areas would use that. People in township environments challenge with that. So just access to technology is the first thing. Secondly, one's got to understand the psyche about township environment, and a lot of, not only South Africa, the African continent, a lot of people literally live day to day, week to week, month to month. And so cash and working capital is a key challenge, right? So assuming I have a spaza shop, right? And the spaza shop is 3 meters by 3 meters. I can only have so much stock in there from two perspectives. My store is small. Secondly, I don't have more cash to go and buy more stock, right? So if I have 10 packets of chips and 20 cans of Coca-Cola, when it gets to 10, then I can buy more because I've sold those 10, I've got cash in, I've made my profit, and I can go buy more. So working capital, right? And thirdly, we mustn't treat township entrepreneurs similar to corporate entrepreneurs. The environment is significantly different. The challenges are significantly different. You've started off a business where you are upskilling people around coding. It is not necessarily a township-based business. So the dynamics you're dealing with are significantly different to the spaza shop owner that's sitting in the middle of Alex, just by way of example. And so when we started off this Township Incubator Accelerator program, our thinking was to go and support entrepreneurs that were looking to solve localized township challenges, right? And by that, I mean, I live in Alex, I know what the issue is. So you would have seen in the last 2, 3, 4 years, last mile delivery has become more prominent in the township environment, right? There's a number of people that come. But what have they done? They've seen the need in the marketplace, in the township, but more importantly, they're partnering with the township to go and solve that problem. So I've described 3, and there are many, many more. But for me, I think this tech piece and the working capital piece are like bigger challenges. Just connectivity and utilization of tools that make our lives easier, right? If you open up your smartphone, you probably have over 100 apps downloaded, right? Reasonably speaking, in the township environment, a user will probably have 20, 30, 40. They're probably using 4 or 5 more frequently than others because it's a different way of communicating. Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp. Unlikely township people would use things like LinkedIn, not the environment, right? X and all of that. So dynamics in the township are very different.
Yeah. I would say a lot of entrepreneurs take a business idea that's coming from Silicon Valley and then they say, I can easily implement this in South Africa. They've got 50 million people. And I just like, no.
Wrong lens.
Yeah.
The wrong lens. What solution works in other markets? I'm not distinguishing between first world, second world, third world markets. What solutions work in other markets? Don't assume it doesn't work in your market.
Yeah.
Dynamics are very different locally. You have a solution working in Silicon Valley. Everybody earns lots of money. They drive fancy cars. They live in fancy properties. They earn a lot of money. Their solution's about efficiency. Township, very different challenges. Can I get my food delivered from my spaza shop here to somebody that's 1 kilometer up the road? Very different dynamic, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And as someone who deals with entrepreneurs on a daily basis, what are some of the common pitfalls or mistakes that you see young entrepreneurs make in their journey?
It's a couple. I think being in a hurry to get somewhere, not knowing where you're going. People are entrepreneurs are aspirational. I want to get rich. They don't understand what that means. They want to they want to build $1 billion business. They don't understand what that means. So they want to get somewhere, but they're actually not sure where they want to get to. That's the first thing. Secondly, and we spoke a bit about this earlier on, which is, I've got this idea in my mind. Is there a market for it? And is there a big enough market for it? Right? I'm going to use two extremes. I'm using cars by way of example, right? Think about a Rolls Royce. It's a very expensive car. If you think about a Toyota Corolla, it's a more affordable car. Both cars exist in the market.
Yeah.
But the market for a Rolls Royce is extremely limited versus the market for a Toyota Corolla is much wider. Each of these companies have done a lot of work understanding the product they take into market and the market that's available. And over years, they built a brand around that. Toyota have done the same. Speed up, and I'm just using these two by way of example. You can pick 10, 20, 30 other brands. And so really understanding the market and the market dynamics and the need for what you want. So if you're selling something where 10, 20, 50, 100, 1,000 people could use it, beyond that, have you thought that far through? So when we say, do you understand the market? Have you done an assessment of what the market requires, the size of your market? It's in the context of this. And secondly, whatever you take into market, less than 1% of the market is going to use your solution in the first 1 year. Less than 1%. Fractions of a percentage. Because you need to build trust, you need to build credibility, you need to have brand awareness, a whole bunch of other things that go with it. So just being in this hurry type of thing.
Yeah.
Of late, and I'm seeing this like very common trait coming through with entrepreneurs, not understanding finances. And that's a whole basket on its own. I've got 10,000 Rand in my bank. What should I utilize it for? What choices? How long will this 10,000 Rand last me? Do I have enough money now to pay my expenses at the end of the month? And I often deal with entrepreneurs and they say, well, we'll get an accountant. An accountant is just going to help you process your stuff. But do you understand what the numbers are telling you? Right? Because ultimately, when you get into business, it's about making money. Get some comfort around the numbers. Spoken a bit about the fundraising. I think a lot of entrepreneurs don't understand this fundraising journey. It's got a lot better in Africa and particularly in South Africa. 4 or 5 years ago, we used to benchmark ourselves against traditionally more established markets. Silicon Valley, what's happening in the Middle East, or what's happening in the UK. Those are very different markets. We can't compare them to us. So people would say, I've got this great idea. I've got some clients. My valuation is 10x. How did you get to that? No, the guys in Silicon Valley are talking 20x. Do you understand the market size and the propensity of people to spend in Silicon Valley versus you sitting in the middle of Alex Township? Right? So the lens of comparison that a lot of entrepreneurs have is Silicon Valley. It's the wrong comparison. We're in Africa. We're in South Africa. Our dynamics are different. So that narrative has quickly shifted on the continent. And I engage a lot with founders and entrepreneurs and investors. We need to start writing our own African script around what makes sense for us as investors. Entrepreneurs need to understand that, right? Which is saying, I actually am in Africa, South Africa. I have a solution that's going to work here. I can roll it out on the continent. Those are the dynamics I'm dealing with. I compare myself to somebody that's sitting in a different market.
It's completely different. Everything is different.
And so entrepreneurs get caught up in the wrong things. I spoke to this guy and he's just got an idea. He's raised $500,000. Okay, where did he raise? No, he raised it. He raised in California. Do you know what California looks like? And do you know where you are? Those dynamics are very different. So it's about really those basic things. For me, an overarching thing is that entrepreneurship is a journey, not a destination. And so it's about embracing that what's coming up tomorrow, you're not quite sure, but you can plan for it, but understanding that you are on a journey.
Thank you. Well said. Well said. Okay, so last question before we go on to the end. Where has the time gone? Wait, I told you we're gonna need
Wow.
a part 2 and a part 3 on this one.
Wow.
Okay, so for an aspiring tech founder who's listening, what is the most important piece of advice you would give them as they embark on their entrepreneurial journey?
Two pieces of advice. And the first probably outweighs the second. Be prepared to work hard and work smart. Getting into entrepreneurship is not an easy journey. It's lonely. The rewards out there. You get monetary reward and you get self-fulfillment reward. So for me, understand it is a journey and you got to work really, really hard. For tech founders in particular, and this is the second piece, which is the tech lens, be very clear what you are trying to solve and do a lot of research around that. There's so much of tech out there that allows you to be a lot more efficient, to be smart about what you build, how you use tools, how you use technology. But do your research properly. And the research lens is local, the country, continental, global.
Got that.
Lastly, get an advisor.
Get an advisor. Where does someone get an advisor? Where do they look?
Yeah, it's a funny thing. I get between 5 and 12 people talking to me every single week via LinkedIn. So again, have your lens changed up, which is when you want to talk to advisors, work out where are they more likely to be prominent. Not Facebook, that's a social chat. Not Instagram, we are posting photos. Not Twitter, it's 140 characters and maybe more. It's LinkedIn, the business environment. So control LinkedIn. Find those people. Send 100 emails. I'm not guilty of this. I get a lot of people approaching me and I have lenses now. Tell me what you want. Tell me what you've done, whatever it is. And I have to filter people out. To get your story right. There are a lot of people out there willing to help. But you got to be like putting yourself out there, reaching out to people, using your contact base. Any entrepreneur that started a business that can't find an advisor, my only comment and response would be, you're not trying hard enough. You've got enough people in your network, immediate network. You reach out to them, they will connect you with somebody that's willing to help you.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. I found that having advisors and mentors, it just eliminates a lot of unnecessary mistakes that you're going to make.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Incredible. Thank you, Sanjay. So we have this tradition where we ask you the question from the previous guest. So the previous guest was John Kitenge of Fractional Dev. His question to you is, how do you define hard work?
How do I define hard work? To me, we spoke a bit about this earlier on. It's the hard and the smart part. The hard work for me is doing whatever I need to do to get a result that I'm looking for. And that hard work then means that if I now have got to deliver something, sometimes it may be more hours, sometimes it may be being more efficient, and sometimes it may be just having lots of discussion with lots of people. And it could be a combination of all of that. So the hard work for me is that getting that result I want and doing what I need to do to get that result.
Do you have epic stories of all-nighters, having to pull all-nighters? I'm asking an accountant this.
You know, in my earlier career, I did, and currently in one of my businesses, I do that. I've got really epic encounters. I can't mention the names because it's way back when. So we were doing a transaction for a global oil company that we're looking to make a local acquisition. And they gave us probably 12 days to finish the due diligence process. 8 days was in Joburg, 9 days. We had to fly to Cape Town and deliver the report in Cape Town to their team. I think in the first 7 or 8 days, the entire team worked at my house. I had a team of 7 people. We worked in my house. I had a different property at the time and we had lots of space. Each one had their own space because I just needed everybody together. And we worked on average 18 hours a day, nonstop. And that was 7, 8 days. Get to Cape Town. And night one, I left the offices and walked across to my hotel at 3 o'clock in the morning. Night two, we didn't sleep. And I literally left the office at 5:15 to walk across, to have a shower, have breakfast, and come back and do the presentation. I do it over again for two reasons. Number one, we gave the client a commitment that we'll get this thing done. But more importantly, we did it as a team. There was not one person that left before anybody left. If it meant you sleeping in your chair for 1 hour, that's what you did. But you were sitting at the table. And it's not about me. Everybody had the same understanding and acceptance. And so as a team, we did it.
One last question. When it comes to building a team, what are the characteristics that an entrepreneur needs to look like, especially early on? Yeah, one last question.
Especially early on, you are building a family. So you're building on relationships. You want to get people that buy into your vision of where you want to take this business. They must believe in you as the individual. They must believe in you and the business idea that they're wanting to support. But you want to treat your early employees as being part of your extended family. And treat them like that.
Incredible. And your question for the next guests?
How do you define success?
Got it. Sanjay, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure having you. Thank you for honoring the invitation.
Thank you very much for having me. I've really enjoyed the last hour and looking forward to chatting again. Thank you very much.
Awesome. And as part of our tradition, also would like to just give you this little gift.
Oh, wow.
This is Masters of Money.
Yeah.
I think
Thank
you will
you very
enjoy
much.
this. Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Okay. As a CFO yourself, as an accountant yourself.
Thank you very much.
Incredible. All right. Thank you so much, guys. Hope you got some value. I'm pretty sure now you don't have an excuse to start a business. You've been told how to start it with no money, with no network, with no capital, with nothing. You now know how to start a business. And if you don't take these lessons, you have no one to blame. So thank you so much for watching. We'll see you on the next episode. And always remember that the truth will always set you free. Goodbye, guys.